Okay. Before I do anything else, I need to issue sort of an apology. After iMPACT last Thursday, I got a request from one of my Twitter followers to do a joint review. I'd never done one of those before, and I like to shake things up and try different things from time to time. Plus, I've been looking for an excuse to finally get Skype figured out. So I said, what the hell, sure. And the guy I did it with was someone I had never met before or even really talked to prior to filming this thing, which was a mistake on my part because we really didn't coordinate well with it. He was doing one thing, and I just ended up sort of playing along. And something you need to know about me is that quality control is a real sticking point. Because when I do a video, I do a lot of retakes. And sometimes I'll reshoot the entire thing if I'm not happy with it, and then I'll spend a long time cutting it together, obsessing over really minor edits because I like to hold my stuff up to a certain standard. I like these things to look professional. And I think your subscribers appreciate it when you put a lot of effort into your videos, and I work really hard on these things. And even while we were filming this, I knew it was going to be pretty far removed from what my subscribers had come to expect from me, because he has his own style and it just didn't mesh with what I normally like to do. And as I was cutting it together, I wasn't liking how it was turning out, and I should have done something about it then, but it only took a fraction of the time these things usually take to edit, and in a moment of laziness, I just said to myself, well, it's done. I might as well post it. I'll have the whole weekend free now, and it is not that bad. It's alright. So I uploaded it. I got so much negative feedback for this thing. I got more negative feedback in a few hours for this video than I probably had for any other video I've made. And that's why it's deleted now, because after watching it back, even I didn't like it. It went really long, the audio quality was not good, and apparently you guys really didn't like my guest. Message received, okay? Don't take this out on him. He's a perfectly nice guy. He was just playing a character. I don't blame him for the video. I blame myself. I really should have planned it out much better than I did and put more work into it, but the whole thing was kind of spur of the moment. All I can really do is just apologize for uploading something that didn't measure up to my usual standards and promise that I most likely won't be doing joint reviews like that in the future. That being said, let's try this again. The show opens with Bobby Roode, who I guess decided that him being absent from the show last week probably wasn't the best way to hype the Lockdown main event. So he comes out with this whole security detail and he starts running down James Storm. Pretty standard promo from Roode. I do feel like he's becoming somewhat repetitive. I'd like to see the writers give him a little more variety with these things because it seems like a lot of his promos are starting to sound the same to me. It's certainly not a bad promo, but the been there, done that vibe is creeping in. I'd like Roode to venture out of his comfort zone more, but it seems like they're intent on keeping him in there, which might be limiting his growth in this role somewhat. Interesting note here, one of Roode's security guys, OVW's Mikey Nichols, tag team partner of Shane Hayes, who played Roode's legal advisor last week. So if they're getting on TV 2 weeks in a row, I think it's a safe bet that their tryout went pretty well. And I've seen a little bit of their stuff on the indies, not a lot of it, but TNA could do and have done a hell of a lot worse than these guys for tag teams. So if they've been signed or are about to be signed, I won't complain. It sounds like a good idea to me. So Storm gets into it with Roode's security guys, then Bully Ray comes out and they fight, and Storm challenges him and Roode to a handicap match. I think the whole dynamic with Bully Ray is getting kind of muddled. One week he's on Roode's side, the next week he's against him, and he's flip-flopping an awful lot. His motivation is always clear. He wants the world title, and he'll play buddy-buddy with Roode if it points him in that direction. And they haven't jumped the shark with this yet, but he's starting to get pretty close to 2011 Kane Anderson territory now. And if he doesn't pick a side and stick with it relatively soon, I think it's going to become tiresome for the audience. Still, this worked as an opener. The crowd liked it. They're responding to Storm the way he needs them to. The segment had sort of a dull beginning, but it had a strong finish. Something that did not have a strong start or a strong finish was the knockout segment. Velvet Sky versus Madison Rayne. Because someone in management felt that we needed to see this match again. Thanks a lot.
This whole show is ridiculous!
This is one of the reasons why the knockout division feels stale right now. It's the same women over and over and over again. Gail, Velvet, Madison, Mickey, ODB. Sarita sneaks in there occasionally, but for the most part, it's been very focused on these 5 women for a while, and it's really getting dull now. That combination of women isn't going to show us anything different at this point. Change it up already. Get some different knockouts in the mix, please. It's way past time that happened. If you've seen any match with Velvet or Madison, you've pretty much seen this one, but it didn't go that long, mercifully. Afterward, Velvet cuts, frankly, a really bad promo and says that she never got a rematch for the title and she's coming after Gail, boy howdy. So Gail's had that title for about 5 months. And after Velvet has been in #1 contenders matches and all this other stuff, it's not until this point when Velvet has decided to do something about it and play the rematch card. And that's piss-poor timing on her part, considering they're heading into lockdown in a match where Velvet will be at a huge disadvantage. Now, don't get me wrong. I have all the faith in the world that Gail Kim will bust her ass to make that match good. And Gail has a great track record with cage matches. We know she's not afraid to go high risk or dive off the top of the cage if she has to. Granted, she was working a babyface wrestling style when she did that stuff, but I don't believe for 1 second that Velvet is going to be able to hold up her end. Velvet Sky is very over. I don't like it, but I can't deny it. But TNA need to be practical about this. Even at the best of times, Velvet is just not very good as a wrestler. Does anyone really think she's going to be able to deliver a good cage match? I don't. And she'll be lucky if she doesn't embarrass herself in there. You're putting her in a situation where you really can't protect her or even disguise her weaknesses that much. And I'm sure the casual fans won't give a crap about that part because Velvet being over with them has nothing to do with her wrestling, and it never has. But I just don't see this being very good at all. I think Gail is really going to have her work cut out for her here. And just really bad timing in my opinion. If Velvet is going to get her rematch, it shouldn't be in a match like this. They went to a pre-taped segment with Dixie Carter and Hogan where she's trying to convince him to become the new iMPACT general manager. And since last week, any uncertainty or trepidation that Dixie was feeling about this decision has essentially gone out the window, and now she's pretty much begging him to take the job. And again, they continue to portray Dixie as being so helpless, which really doesn't project the kind of image you want the president of the company to have, on screen or not. I mean, it really bothers me that they do this, and I'm starting to think that they actually write her this way on purpose just so guys like Sting and Hogan can look better by comparison. And that's dumb because, number one, they don't need it, and number two, it's another short-term solution. Those guys are going to be gone someday, and Dixie will still be there. Shouldn't you make her at least appear like she has some control of things? I'm just saying. This segment went on forever, way past the point of redundancy, and I guess in a way I understand. They want to put it over like a big deal, and I've criticized them as much as anyone about not presenting things as being as important as they should be, so in principle they had the right idea. But at the same time, I don't think the return of Hogan to the general manager role after just a few months of being gone is nearly as big a deal as they're making it out to be, and judging by the ratings, I don't think I'm alone in that either. You know what really could have used some of this focus instead? The announcement that the Motor City Machine Guns are going to be returning next week. We haven't seen the Guns together in over a year now, but they're finally back next week. Awesome, I can't wait. But Mike Tenay just says this in passing during a match, like it really didn't mean that much. This is something that you ought to be promoting the hell out of, considering that they're the guys at TNA, by their own admission, mind you, said was going to raise the profile of the tag team division, which, let's face it, does still need a lot of work. And they did mention the return again later, and they gave it a graphic, really cheap-looking graphic, admittedly, but it just felt so underwhelming. Give them another video package or something. Or if you want the announcers to break the news, at least have the camera be on the announcers and have that be the focus of the segment. Don't just throw the news out there randomly when there's a match going on that has nothing to do with them. Come on, TNA, that's just simple common sense.
You people are fools!
Austin Aries comes out, and they finally pulled the babyface trigger on him now. So he runs down Bully Ray for punking him out last week and then volunteers to be James Storm's partner in the main event. Pretty basic stuff here, but well done. And what I liked about this was that even though Aries was in face mode now, they didn't change him that much. He was still arrogant, he was still kind of a prick, And that's Austin Aries. That's just who he is. It wasn't like when Velvet Sky turned face and suddenly everything about her personality and her character and even her backstory was completely different. Aries was still acting like himself, just in a slightly more endearing way, and that's a nod to character continuity that I appreciated. Matt Morgan and Crimson had a match. Now, if you'll recall, the last time they did this a few months ago, the results were pretty mixed. A lot of people didn't like it. I didn't think it was that bad personally, but I said it would be a good idea if they didn't face each other again until something about the dynamic between them changed. Before, they were just two babyfaces who respected each other, with not much of a storyline behind it, which isn't the best avenue for drawing heat, let's be honest. Now, it's a lot more interesting. Crimson's a heel, which he seems much more comfortable as. He stabbed Morgan in the back. Morgan wants revenge. The crowd reacted to this a lot more favorably than they did the last time. I thought the match was good for the few minutes it had, and now that they've made the necessary changes, I think this feud is going to be much, much better the second time around. Kurt Angle booked Jeff Hardy versus Ken Anderson, saying that if Hardy wins, then Angle will face him at Lockdown, but if not, then he won't. Because Kurt has the power to book matches and stipulations all of a sudden. Not really sure how, but there you go. So Angle causes a DQ, Anderson wins, and the match was what it was. This might have just been a way to write Kurt out of the Lockdown match because he's injured and he's got the Olympic trials coming up in a few weeks and something had to give there, so that's understandable. Shit happens. Not really sure what they'll be doing with Hardy now, though. My guess is they'll probably add him to the Garrett Bischoff match in some capacity, which at this point could only benefit from his involvement, but I'll get to that one in a minute. ODB and Eric Young made wedding plans. Ha-ha! I must confess, I did not watch this segment. I just muted the sound on my TV and waited for it to be over. There's no point in me watching these things. I know casual fans seem to really like ODB and Eric Young together, but they do nothing but irritate me, so when I see this stuff, I just look away. Now, the one thing I will comment on is that apparently their wedding is going to happen on the Lockdown Go Home show, and that's definitely more tolerable than having it at Lockdown at least, but if it's happening then, inside of the steel cage, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong about that, I think something might happen here to set up something for the pay-per-view. And I said this in the deleted video, but what I'd like to see happen here is TNT and Sarita and Rosita crash the wedding, destroy everything, beat the living shit out of Eric Young, hold ODB down, make her watch, then the four of them take the Knockout Tag Title belts and leave with them. And the story could be that they all think it's an insult to them that Eric Young has one of the women's tag titles and they're not going to stand for it. That's a simple, logical explanation. It would at least be something to put some focus on those titles, and while it's still a joke that Eric Young is involved, it could at least get some good heat because even though I can't stand him and ODB in this storyline, the pairing is over with a lot of people. That I think would be something cool. If that happened, I would not mute the sound during this segment. Just putting that out there. Eric Bischoff cuts a promo. He spends a few minutes putting himself over, and then he calls out Garrett. And apparently, Garrett versus Gunner has been booked for Lockdown. Because, for reasons that continue to elude me, TNA officials think the audience actually wants to see that.
I don't know what my future holds, but I know one thing.
I really don't have much to say about this. You put Bischoff in the ring with Garrett by themselves, and it becomes obvious very quickly that Bischoff's natural charisma and showmanship probably skipped a generation. I don't know if Garrett has any of that, but if he does, he hasn't shown it yet, which is one of the reasons why he shouldn't be getting pushed like this. He still has no personality, no character beyond the completely generic, and I'm sorry, but he looks so damn stupid with those sideburns. Can't he trim those things or something? They look like they're trying to escape his face, for crying out loud. It just looks ridiculous.
You can take this microphone and shove it up your ass.
They had a James Storm video package to hype the Lockdown main event. Really effective and very well done, I thought. All the videos for this match have been uniformly great so far. They also had the premiere of his music video that they made out of his entrance theme. I thought that was really cool, actually. It's something that wasn't really necessary, but it's a nice touch. And it's little things like that that can really help put guys over the top. And I'm not a country music expert by any means, but if they're sending this thing out to like country music radio stations, and I think I heard something about that, that's the kind of thing that can help increase mainstream appeal for these guys. So it's really great to see them make that kind of effort with James Storm to really promote him as the guy, because he's worth it. You know, I really wish they'd do more stuff like that with their other homegrown talent. Main event time, Bobby Roode and Bully Ray versus James Storm and Austin Aries. There was one thing this was lacking. I missed the part where they addressed the fact that Aries was teaming with Roode and Bully Ray in a match against James Storm just a few weeks ago. And yeah, Taz mentioned it during the match, but still, it felt like that got kind of glossed over. You know, this really could have used a backstage segment with Storm and Aries where they hashed this out. It didn't have to be a long one, just long enough to show that it's a detail that's not lost on these guys. That's all I was looking for. But anyway, this was a really solid match, and Austin Aries was really the focus of this, believe it or not. You know, he worked the majority of that match, and he got showcased great. They must really be behind Austin Aries right now because, no joke, his push has been one of the best things this company has done in the last year. I think even ROH marks would have to be pretty pleased with the way his latest run in this company has gone. I mean, it really is hard to find much fault with it right now. Hot match, the faces win, Aries continues to get elevated, strong hype for Storm and Roode. This was a great segment. I really wish they'd ended the show with this. Unfortunately, they ended the show with Dixie and Hogan. She brings him out to get his answer about becoming the new Impact GM. I don't know why they didn't just do that last week. So Sting comes out, and he tries to hype this up like it's the greatest thing that could possibly happen. And this might as well have been the official debut of the Hulk Hogan Kiss My Ass Club, because that's pretty much what this was. Dixie is kissing Hogan's ass. Sting's kissing Hogan's ass. The entire fucking babyface roster empties. They come down to the ring and they start kissing Hogan's ass.
Oh my God, he's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
Everyone's applauding, everyone's cheering, and only then does Hogan finally say yes. And my God, if there has been a more desperate and blatant attempt to massage Hogan's ego in recent memory, I can't think of one. This whole thing just came off as hilariously self-indulgent. Big picture here. Hogan was the authority figure for close to 2 years, right? And now, after he's only been away for a few months, they're practically throwing him a fucking parade when he comes back. They're obviously pumping him up like he's going to be the savior of Impact's ratings problem, but if you've seen the ratings for the last 2 weeks, there's little to no chance of that strategy panning out. I mean, hell, this week everyone knew Hogan was going to be on the show, and the rating was actually down considerably from the last episode. Doesn't that tell you anything? I'm very concerned here that TNA is going to be putting too much faith in Hogan's drawing power when, in 2012, you really have to question if he even still has that much. Were the ratings down? Yes. Did they need to do something about it? Yes. But Hogan is not going to solve this problem. Look back at his entire run in this company. Outside of the first few months he was there, he really hasn't done much for the ratings at all if you think about it. I mean, interest in him is not what it used to be. Clearly, the luster has worn off. You want to make use of Hogan? Have him do media interviews. Have him be an ambassador for the company. If he's useful for anything, that would be it. But if you want to use him as a ratings ploy, you're just shooting yourselves in the foot. Because even if it works, which it's not by the way, but even if it works, it's still just a short-term fix that doesn't address the real issue. Then one day, he's gonna leave and you'll be right back in the same position with the same problem.
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this!
Didn't like Velvet and Madison, the stuff with Garrett Bischoff, ODB Eric Young, and the Hogan thing drove home the point that they have just not learned their lesson with this guy yet. The rest of the show I enjoyed. Anything involving Roode and Storm was great. The improvements in Crimson and Morgan made a big difference. Austin Aries was in the main event again. You really can't go wrong with that. So, it was a mixed bag, yeah, but the good stuff made the show worth it. So that's it for this video. And once again, I apologize for the joint review. It sucked. I'm sorry. All I can do now is try harder to not let stuff like that slip through the cracks in the future. And if you don't, I'll remind you. You're all heart.